It's been nearly 30 years. So far we've had one trailer, and that is about it. Now I know why you're here, so let's get disappointed together. A restored bottom of the well, an ice cavern. The original Ocarina of Time was hinted to have shipped with cut content, mainly an early version of the bottom of the well in an ice temple. An unused texture found in the game's files reads Cori Mendoru, literally meaning medal of ice. And there wouldn't be an ice medallion unless there was an ice temple to go with it, right? Now compare the bottom of the well to the spirit temple, and there's thematic similarities fans have been speculating for years, ones that they think could finally come to fruition in the remake. I'm going to call this one borderline. Nintendo could expand on ideas it had 30 years ago, and it had a fair bit of time to figure out how. So let's wait and see how close to the original version this remake actually gets. A ground-up new art style and visual rebuild. This is as close to it already confirmed as you can get. Nintendo's official line goes, stunning visuals, updated designs, timeless gameplay. We've already seen the teaser, young Link asleep in the Kokiri forest. It's described as closer to Twilight Princess realism rather than Breath of the Wild's cel-shaded look. Regardless, this is shaping up to be one of the best looking games on the Switch 2, and might just be reason enough for hardcore fans to replay a Nintendo classic that they could probably beat blindfolded by now. A $50 price point. Even after the $50 leak dropped a couple of weeks ago, this seemed like a reasonable price for the remake. Now we're still waiting on an official number from Nintendo, but if it follows the lead of the recently released Star Fox remake on the Switch 2, then this could be the price they're expected to pay. But this is Ocarina of Time. Arguably it's the most anticipated remake of the century, which is exactly why I think Nintendo lands closer to the $70 mark. So I'm going to call this one probably not. A native randomiser mode built in. Zelda randomizers have become an increasingly popular way to replay the series. Now if you're not familiar, a randomiser shuffles every item throughout the world, turns the game into one giant treasure hunt, and no two playthroughs are the same. Now as fun as that would be, there's basically no way this happens. It's not Nintendo's style, and it breaks the whole point of a remake, which is kind of Nintendo's bread and butter. So I'm going Miyamoto says no on this one. However, would have killed off a chunk of the emulator scene overnight though. Just a thought, Nintendo. 3DS era quality of life features to return. I'm calling this one already confirmed. Nintendo's already done the work here. It's increased item slots, D-pad item mapping, gyro aim, a boss gauntlet, all present and correct on the 3DS version. Honestly, this is low-hanging fruit. Removing any of these would be actually a surprise, and a downgrade from a 13-year-old re-release, which is a genuinely embarrassing sentence to have to say out loud. Medallion Divine Beast Star Powers. Could the developers add Medallion powers to the remake? I'm going to start this off in fan-hopium. So, what would these actually do? Maybe the Light Medallion sends out an AoE burst, stunning or straight up killing nearby enemies? Or the Shadow Medallion gives Link a short window of invisibility? What do you think? Neat ideas? But not something Nintendo's likely to touch. It'd been redesigning core dungeon structure from the ground up. It's a big ask for a remake that's supposed to be, well, a remake. A dedicated jump button. This one is my personal number one hope for the remake, which is exactly why it's landing in fan-hopium, not already confirmed. Never really been a fan of context-sensitive jumping. It's been a series mainstay since 1998, and honestly, a mainstay I'd love to retire. It's also worth noting that this rumour resurfaces every single time an Ocarina of Time remake gets mentioned, which doesn't exactly bode well for my hopium. But this old Zelda fan is holding out the hope at least they add it as a toggle in the settings. Please, Nintendo? Switch motion controls. The hardware's there, and Nintendo has a history with this gimmick. You only need to look as far as Skyward Sword to know exactly what I mean. I think this one's genuinely a 50-50, could go either way, and if it does happen, let's just pray to the Golden Goddess that there's an option to turn it off. No loading screens. I'm calling this one already confirmed, because these days, a lack of a loading screen is treated as an exception on modern hardware. Now the original used loading screens extensively, most memorably that harsh dip to black whenever you move between areas, dungeons, houses, and there are even some overworld transitions. It became one of the most recognisable, if not mocked, quirks of the game, and it was largely down to the N64's limited hardware. Areas had to load from the cartridge separately, rather than stream in continuously. Interestingly though, when Nintendo remade the game for the 3DS, the loading screens stayed, but they've since proved it's possible. Large open worlds without any seams, Just look at Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. So this time around, feels less like a hope and more like a must. A bigger and expanded Hyrule field. This one's splitting the fan base. Some want an expansion, others think that Nintendo's too reverent to alter the original gameplay's geography. Hyrule Field is basically sacred ground at this point. Personally, I just like Hyrule Field to feel a bit more alive. A few more NPCs, a few more enemies, and not just the occasional pineapple of death. And there's no official word either way, so I'm going to call this one borderline. Cutscene voice acting, just not Link. Now, the teaser already is fully narrated by an unseen voice, likely Raru from the original game. But the consensus is, even from the skeptics, that voice acting is already locked in for the cutscenes. Link, though, he'll mostly stay silent, except of course for when rolling around Hyrule. Now, this is likely one of the biggest departures from the original, but Nintendo's recent Star Fox remake proves that they've already got what it takes, so let's pray that this doesn't turn into a cringe fest. That said, this change alone could make Ocarina of Time the definitive version, for the next 30 years at least. Breath of the Wild style free climbing. This is something I would love to see, genuinely. If they're rebuilding it from the ground up, then why not? But here's the catch. It would fundamentally change the traversal of the original, and you may as well throw the existing puzzle design straight in the bin. Now, Nintendo, listen up. What if you made this as a Master Quest style option? So once I've fully beaten the game in one retro-fueled weekend, let me try my hand at flying through Hyrule as a full Breath of the Wild style Link. A small post-game leading into Majora's Mask. At the end of Ocarina of Time, adult Link defeats Ganon, and Princess Zelda then sends him back in time to his childhood, before he ever pulled out the Master Sword, so he could have the childhood he missed. Now that's the moment where the official Zelda timeline splits into 3 branches, which has been established officially in the 2011 Hyrule Historia. And literal days after the ending of Ocarina of Time, while riding through the Lost Woods, Link is ambushed. Skull Kid wearing Majora's mask steals his horse Epona and knocks him into a strange alternate world, Termina, starting you off at the very beginning of Majora's Mask. So here's the question. It's not, would Nintendo connect these 2 games? They already are connected. The real question is, would Nintendo dramatise that connection? Turn it into a bonus epilogue right here in the remake? Nothing's been hinted at, no teaser, no post-credits stinger, and Nintendo loves a post-credit stinger, so I'm calling this one probably not, even though lore-wise, it's basically sat right there waiting for them. Ura Zelda as DLC. Ura Zelda was an expansion of Ocarina of Time, originally planned for the 64DD add-on. Same engine, same plot, but with harder, rearranged dungeons. It was actually inspired by the second quest concept from the very first Zelda on the NES. It also contained cut content from the main game due to time and storage constraints. But famously, Nintendo scrapped the 64DD release. Limited distribution, dead hardware, and Ura Zelda went down with it. But rather than staying lost though, it got ported to the GameCube and re-released as Master Quest, bundled with Wind Waker pre-orders, and it's been included in every major Ocarina of Time re-release since, including the 3DS remake. So Ura Zelda and Master Quest at this point are functionally the same thing. Now, community speculation is leaning towards Master Quest becoming a free post-launch DLC, rather than a day one inclusion. The theory? Nintendo holds it back a few months, gives the game a second wave of attention once the holiday launch buzz dies down. Now that's all it is, speculation from the fan forums, nothing Nintendo's yet confirmed. Old glitches surviving the remake. The original Ocarina of Time is absolutely riddled with glitches, sequence breaks, wrong warps, bugs that genuinely break the game, and it's a huge part of why this game still has such an obsessive speedrunning scene even decades later. So, will any of it survive the remake? Firstly, if you look at the 3DS Ocarina of Time release for clues, Nintendo did go in and fix a bunch of known exploits which the die-hard fans noticed almost immediately. But here's the twist. The glitch hunters didn't stop. They just found new ones. As recently as 2024, a fresh discovery completely obliterated an old speedrun strategy in a game that's over a decade old, based on another game that's even older. Now the more recent release of Skyward Sword HD gives us more clues as well, but from a totally different angle. Nintendo patched a genuinely game-breaking softlock outright, but the bigger hit to speedrunning wasn't even intentional. Now the Switch doesn't have a soft reset button, and one exploit needed the soft reset button on the Wii in order to be pulled off. So that feels like an accidental fix if we're being honest. So here's my prediction. The obvious, well-known Ocarina glitches will be gone, patched out deliberately on day one. But this is new hardware, brand new code. There's a whole new game's worth of bugs just waiting to be found. I'm calling this one borderline. The old glitches are dead, but long live whatever the community digs up a week after the game's released. A playable demo at Tokyo Game Show. Next up, a rumour that only resurfaced last week. Industry insider Nash Riedel posted that Nintendo could bring a playable demo to the Tokyo Game Show, running from September the 17th through to the 21st. And there's some logic here. 2026 is Zelda's 40th anniversary after all, which gives Nintendo a natural excuse for a showcase moment. There's precedent too. Hyrule Warriors had a playable demo at last year's TGS, but this is a single insider source, not an official Nintendo confirmation. And Nintendo doesn't typically headline Tokyo Game Show, so there's a real chance they skip it entirely and just do a direct instead. I'm going to rank this one Fanhopium. The logic and the timing line up plausibly, but it's resting on one single leak, not multiple corroborating sources, and not anything from Nintendo itself. Although, while you wait, there is an unofficial fan-made OOT remake. Now it's been in progress for years, and the developer just put out new gameplay footage. However, he has said that this will be the last of it, making way for Nintendo's official remake. But this is the internet doing Nintendo's job for free. It is impressive it never received a cease and desist though. Improved fishing a la Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Now, this one's mine. It's not a leak, not an insider, not a data mine texture, just me wanting Nintendo to let me be a war criminal to fish again. Now if you play Breath of the Wild, you know the trick. You drop a bomb in the water, and every fish within 50 feet just surfaces belly up. It's a free lunch. Lake Hylia already has a fishing spot in the original Ocarina of Time, so it's not impossible Nintendo modernizes it, but let's be clear. I'm not reporting a rumour here. I'm just throwing this one out to the universe. That said, I don't think Miyamoto's going to allow this one, which is why it's probably the most Miyamoto says no entry on this list. But if the remake's already borrowing jumping, climbing and stamina from Breath of the Wild, why not just let me commit a few more war crimes against the local wildlife too? Reworked sword combat. Every 3D Zelda since Ocarina of Time has modernised its combat. Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, Breath of the Wild. All of them move forward, not one of them looking back. So, the idea that Nintendo 30 years later hands us a ground-up remake and just keeps the same stiff N64 era Z targeting, I'd say this is much less of a rumour and much closer to already confirmed. Not because Nintendo's mentioned it yet, but because the alternative would be really weird. A Majora's Mask remake in 2027. The original Majora's Mask reused huge amounts of Ocarina's assets, NPCs and engine originally, so the reverse is true of the remake. Nintendo could reuse much of this remake's assets, engine, character models, making a Majora's Mask follow-up comparatively fast and cheap. For all we know, could be in the works already. But if this Ocarina remake turns out to be a heavy reimagining rather than a faithful one-to-one rebuild, that asset reuse logic quickly falls apart. Majora's Mask would need its own from-scratch design work, no shortcuts, no quick turnaround. I'll call this one borderline. Although, full disclosure, I actually prefer Majora's Mask over Ocarina of Time. So consider this me putting this out in the open, a very vague hope that somehow, somewhere, Nintendo hears my call. So there it is. All of the myths and rumours surrounding Ocarina of Time that I could get my sticky little fingers on. This video is going out in the middle of July, and all being well, a game that Nintendo fans, me included, have been salivating for should land later on this year. It's something that's been in the works for years. And if this video's proven anything, it's that facts are very sparse. So that's every rumour I could find, ranked from already confirmed all the way down to Miyamoto saying no. And if you like this and want more Game Dad, two things: subscribe and check out this recommendation that YouTube thinks you'll like.